data received.
For playing, and I asked this question because I've heard from very reliable sources about Link, the character Link, that Link is hot. Is Link hot to you?
Link is hot. I gotta say, Link is hot. But yeah,
Maybe he's a good-looking guy.
More girls are playing video games, and we probably...
Damn, my body is ready. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of Chozo Lore, the officially unofficial Metroid podcast. And we have a very special day coming up soon. Coming up on Saturday, it will be the beginning of the conferences of E3 2018. But we're not here to talk about fucking EA and none of that shit. We don't give a shit about any of that. We give a shit about Nintendo. And Nintendo begins on June 12th, this Tuesday. And there's one game in particular that we are all excited about today here at Chozo Lore. It is, of course, Metroid Prime 4. But it's not just me talking about this today. We have a very special guest with us today, Mr. Brendan Taylor. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you, sir?
Kill me. No, but at least not before Metroid Prime 4 comes out. Keyword.
Oh, yeah. That's what I keep saying, like, on Twitter and just speaking to people. Can we have World War 3 after I complete Metroid Prime 4, please?
True facts, true facts.
Yeah.
That's like the double D facts meme right there.
Oh, yeah.
Funny story. So we actually had Dan Cattell on with us as well. We started recording on Saturday, but my stupid ass accidentally didn't check the mic, and I didn't realize that I wasn't recording the desktop audio, so I was only recording me. And while I am narcissistic and self-centered, I'm not to that degree, not to a Tony Stark degree, and so we couldn't use that audio for the podcast. But so yeah, we had about an hour of me, Brandon, and Dan talking, but unfortunately that didn't come out because I'm an idiot, and our schedules just haven't been aligned then. So Dan was not able to rejoin with us today, but he should be back with us for episode 3. And you also might notice Darren Kerwin is not here as well. He is not here for reasons that I shall not disclose yet, but he will also be back with us for episode 3 more than likely. Hopefully we can talk more about that later on down the line. But it's just me and Brandon today. I think we'll manage just well. So let's talk about some motherfucking Metroid.
My favorite franchise.
Best girl.
Yeah.
Before we talk about Metroid Prime 4 though, there's been a lot of talk about people wanting a Metroid Prime trilogy. I'm going to get off Facebook so that it doesn't do the little boops all over my audio.
Just bait the audience. So they have to check theirs.
Oh yeah, right. Pretty much the 5 people that actually watch this podcast are actually going on Facebook right now just like, whoa, where's the notification? Where'd it go? But no, so Metroid Prime trilogy. So I have heard a bunch of most people I think would love a Metroid Prime trilogy, but I don't just like to assume because I have talked to some people that actually do not want a Metroid Prime trilogy, and so I want to hear from you, Brandon. What are your thoughts on a Metroid Prime trilogy? If you are in favor of it, do you think it's likely, and what kind of stuff would you like to see in it?
Well, to the people who don't want it, what is wrong with you?
Thank you.
But of course I want it. Metroid Prime is probably one of my favorite games of all time. Behind AM2R, there's just something about AM2R that will just sit with me for the rest of my life, I'd have to say. But Metroid Prime is the game that got me into the series. It's also the one I got stuck on in a really weird situation in Fendrana, but yeah, I'd love a Prime Trilogy HD. Just to come up to the Switch, like in between Metroid Prime 4 and its sequel, if it got one. And a lot of people want it, so why not? They've done remakes for other games, so...
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat as you. I would absolutely kill for a Metroid Prime Trilogy HD remaster, whatever. Hopefully not done by, I can't remember the company that remastered Twilight Princess, but I'd love either Monster Games, Grezzo, or some of Nintendo's internal staff to do the remaster personally, because I think that they're just much better when it comes to ports and remasters of games. In terms of the people that don't want Prime Trilogy, though, I do want to actually address their arguments that they make. I I don't think they're particularly good arguments, but I do think they should be put out there so it's not just a one-sided story. Basically, the two arguments that I've heard against a Trilogy HD remaster is one, the fact that people are worried about internal resources being taken away from Prime 4 development, and my counter argument to that claim is that typically ports are done by separate studios, or if they are done within the same studio, it's done by a completely separate team. So, for instance, the recent Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze port, while that was done by Retro, that was done by a separate team than the main team who is currently working on something unknown. Hopefully not that Star Fox racing game, because that sounds like absolute shit, but that's a completely different topic. Completely different topic. And then you also, as I mentioned, Grezzo, Monster Games, they typically are port studios for other games. Monster sometimes does original stuff, like you had Excite Truck back on the Wii, but they mostly do port jobs. And then Grezzo, they did the Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, the 3DS ports. And so it's typically done by separate studios, and so that wouldn't really take any resources away from the team working on Metroid Prime 4. And then the second argument that I've heard against a Trilogy remaster is an overload of Metroid ports. In particular, because of the fact that Metroid Prime Trilogy is in and of itself a port of the original 3 games. And my argument to that is I don't give a shit. I don't care. And I kind of know what people are saying, because like, you know, they bring up Skyrim and how that's become kind of a meme now, and how it's being ported to fucking everything. It's probably going to be ported to a Texas Instrument calculator before we know it. But like,
here's the difference between Metroid Prime, like specifically the Prime Trilogy and Skyrim, is that the Prime Trilogy is good. I'm saying.
Beyond that, like, Nintendo's not Bethesda. They're not going to port Metroid to that degree, and even so, I think,
like,
and in this,
carry on. Sorry.
No, you were talking first. Go on.
And since it's been so long since we've had anything to do with like a good Metroid Prime game, I think it'd be fair enough, because it, like, by that point it would be over a decade since like the original like Prime Trilogy was released. So to see it on like modern hardware and see, like, for example, Talon 4 on the Switch, it would be amazing. I need to see that. So I think the fact that it's an overload is kind of a null argument.
Yeah, pretty much agreed there. And then some people also say, but the Metroid Prime Trilogy already looks wonderful. Be grateful for... And I am grateful. They look fantastic. They hold up today. But that doesn't mean they can't look better. That doesn't mean I wouldn't want that. Like, why not? And again, people strawman this all the time. Like, because people always go like, oh, you're not great. You got 2 Metroid games and you're so ungrateful. Like, dude, I'm not expecting a Prime Trilogy. If we don't get that, I am more than hyped for Prime 4. If they don't announce Prime Trilogy, whatever. I'm fine. But that's not to say that I wouldn't like that. Like you can want something, but also be totally fine with not getting it.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, I don't understand, like, when people say, like, that they want a Prime Trilogy and everyone just, like, writes it off as, like, oh, you're just not grateful. It's like, what? How? Where did that come from? It's like, of course, the reason why I want it is because I'm grateful for the whole game itself.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, as many other people have mentioned, there's so many people that haven't had a chance to play these phenomenal games, and with the Switch audience rapidly growing, with I believe Kirby Star Allies is the best-selling Kirby game of all time, and that broke 1 million.
Really?
Yeah, I believe so. I could be wrong. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I read somewhere that it's, or maybe not the best selling, but maybe it's the fastest selling. I don't know. I think it's one of those two.
Either way, that's really good, and that, like, just shows how much potential Prime 4 has and a Prime Trilogy has.
And that's not to say, don't mince my words here. I'm not saying, oh, Prime 4 is going to be on Breath of the Wild. It's going to be on top. No, as Metroid is my favorite franchise of all time, but it's not going to touch Zelda sales wise. That's Let's be
That's
realistic
just not
here.
realistic, yeah.
But I do think that there's potential to top Prime 1, which is the current best-selling game of the franchise. I believe it's just under 3 million.
I think it's under 5. I'm not entirely sure, but
I'm pretty sure it was like 2.8 or 2.9 something worldwide.
I think that's the first Metroid game.
No, that was well actually that was Prime 1 on the GameCube. It could have potentially topped 5 million if you combine the Trilogy sales and the new Play Control sales. But I know just the specific GameCube sales were like 2.8 or 2.9 something.
Okay. Yeah, it should do more than that. It should sell way better, especially if it's on the Switch.
And you'll just have even more people playing Prime 4 because I know a lot of people, at least me, when it comes to franchises that I've never played, I always like playing the original game in the series first before I touch the new one. A freaking perfect example right now is Beyond Good and Evil. I just recently started playing the original game for the very first time, but fucking phenomenal, by the way. I am ashamed that I did not play this game earlier. It's so good. And so now that I'm playing it, now I'm really going to get invested into Beyond Good and Evil 2, which I'm a lot more excited for now. So if you release a Prime Trilogy HD, you're going to get even more people interested in Prime 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, we
really
seem to be on the same page here across the board. Nintendo, give us that goods.
Please do.
And if you don't, hey, Prime 4 and Smash alone is fucking hype as shit.
Yeah.
So, Metroid Prime 4, the moment last year that broke the internet, and oh my gosh, it's weird saying that out loud still, that we're actually getting a Metroid Prime 4. Like, is it just me? It feels so weird.
I'm still in disbelief. I'm gonna be honest. It really feels weird to say Metroid Prime 4. It used to be a meme that we were gonna get it, and now we actually are.
Well, that actually syncs up perfectly into my next question. Is Metroid Prime 4 actually going to be shown off? Because there's been a lot of debate around the Nintendo community as whether or not we're actually going to see Metroid Prime 4 make an appearance at E3. I have a couple thoughts on it about myself, but I want to hear what you have to say about it first.
I think we're gonna see something. Like, I doubt we're gonna see gameplay. If we do, I'll be very pleasantly surprised. But I think we're just gonna get another little teaser that'll either have like a title, maybe like a release date, which I hope. I hope for a full-blown like demo, but that's just not realistic. But
yeah, I was going to say, that's definitely not going to happen. It's definitely not going to be playable on the show floor.
Oh, definitely. But I hope something is shown, because it'll be a year since then. Mm-hmm. And, like, under like official like information that we have, that's all we know, is that the game exists. I want a bit more now.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think it's going to be there, but I'm not expecting any gameplay. I'm expecting an in-engine cinematic, very specifically. So not like a CG cutscene or anything like that. Nintendo doesn't usually do that, but I would expect an in-engine cinematic. Which a lot of people said that even that's unreasonable because Nintendo doesn't usually do that. That's just factually incorrect, though. Breath of the Wild was revealed with an in-engine cinematic. Wasn't gameplay, but it used the in-engine to give a taste of what the final game would look like. And it was actually pretty faithful to that in that sense. And so I would expect something similar for Prime 4, along with a subtitle reveal, probably a Silex reveal as well. My boy.
I hope so. I need that Silex, man. Like, it's all just been speculation, and we just need confirmation. Even if it's just like a little teaser of like Samus's visor going from left to right and then cutting off halfway through, and then it forming a line going up to form Silex's visor. That'd be awesome for me.
What I would actually love is like a couple of side profiles with them just facing each other. Like I would absolutely
like
love that
thing. Kind of like Halo 5 with Master Chief and Locke looking at each other.
Yeah, like Halo 5, but good.
Yeah, exactly. There's this actual suggestion going around about Silex being an ally because there's apparently a rumor that Prime 4 is called Renegade.
Oh,
And people
I
speculating.
don't believe that at all.
Yeah, I'm a bit skeptical of it, but
So here's the thing with the Renegade rumor. Sorry to cut you off, but
no,
the reason why that specific rumor has gotten traction is because it was on a piece of paper that also listed Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, and so everyone's like, oh well, that turned out to be true, so I guess everything else on the page must be true. Here's the problem though. Those Pokemon leaks were leaked at least 3 weeks before that paper came out, and so that paper just adapted those names onto the paper. And every single time, every single E3, there is always one of these paper leaks that comes out. Not just for Nintendo, but also for Sony and Microsoft. It always has the for internal use only. There's always spelling errors, including the one that was just leaked. They never become true. Just because it had the Pokemon thing doesn't mean it's true, because that was leaked. The Pokemon thing was leaked all the way back in April. It was leaked on April 1st, for crying out loud. Of all days.
Wait, so you're telling me you don't buy the Super Smash Bros. San Andreas leak?
WoW Reacts only.
Yeah,
No, we all know it's going to be Super Smash Bros. Despacito.
Oh, hell yeah. But I think with the Renegade rumor, I think it's caught traction because it could also make a bit of sense in terms of what people who are suggesting that's what it's called. That's what they're suggesting in terms of the story. Like, it could be post-fusion, because technically Samus is a renegade. So maybe Samus and Silas could coexist, but
See,
I doubt that's the case.
I would love that, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't foresee. Foresee the Prime lore crossing over into the 2D games on that level. We'll talk about that later, because that's actually another topic I wanted to cover.
Yeah.
But lastly, the title on the page says Metroid Prime Renegade. This is a mainline entry in the series, and all the mainline entries are numbered. So, if it would have to be Metroid Prime 4 Renegade, because only the spin-offs are unnumbered, like Federation Force and Hunters. But all the main games have numbers to differentiate themselves.
Yeah,
so
that always threw me off a bit.
But anyways, I don't buy that paper for a minute. I think the Renegade thing. I think everything on that page is bullshit. Except for the Pokemon thing, obviously. But that's cheating, because they literally stole that from another leak.
Yeah, lucky coincidence.
Yeah. What was I talking about before I went off on that rant?
I honestly can't remember.
Right. So, yeah. So, why do people think that Metroid is not going to be there? Well, so Nintendo said that they're going to be focusing on 2018 for this year, which in and of itself I wouldn't give any merit to, because they say something along those lines every year. I mean, they said the same thing last year. We got Prime 4, Kirby, Yoshi, and Pokemon, but there's a little caveat, and it's not on the main page, but if you read the press announcement that they sent to all their YouTube ambassadors, whatever you call them, it says that they're focusing on 2018. Period. 2019 will be featured at a later date, and that's the thing that that's the big takeaway that a lot of people are wondering if Prime 4 is going to be showing, because I think most people agree that I think it's safe to say Prime 4 will be 2019 at the earliest. I do not expect it to come out this year at all.
Oh, so, I don't think it will at all. I wouldn't be surprised if it was announced for 2020.
I'm hoping it's not 2020, but I'd be totally fine with that.
Yeah, I'd rather it be amazing and wait a while as opposed to come out sooner and not be as good as it could be.
Yeah, I waited 7 years for Samus Returns. I can wait another year for Prime 4.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's the big thing that's throwing me off. I still don't think that's. I still think they're going to surprise us with a couple of 2019 things, though, just because Nintendo hasn't really set any kind of precedent for doing something like this. There are only 2 games I can think of where Nintendo showed a game off and then just completely abandoned it the next year and then showed it off again the following year. Those 2 games are Yoshi's Woolly World and Breath of the Wild. For Breath of the Wild in particular, Nintendo announced beforehand that they would not be showing it off in advance. They have said no such thing about Metroid, and so that really leaves Yoshi's Woolly World as the only game to truly set that precedent. And I feel like in terms of sales-wise, obviously Metroid isn't anywhere near Zelda, as I mentioned earlier. But in terms of pure hype, it was one of the hypiest announcements of last year. Definitely at the Nintendo press conference. I mean, just look up Metroid Prime 4 trailer reacts on YouTube and just watch the internet melt down. Yeah, and so I feel like if Nintendo were to not show Metroid without giving a forewarning like they did with Breath of the Wild, I don't think the writing would be too bad because of Smash and because it's not Federation Force. I don't think you're ever going to see writing on that level, but but you're going to piss off a lot of people if you do that. And so I can't see Nintendo doing it just because there isn't really a precedent yet on that level for that kind of thing. So I do think they'll surprise us with some 29, and not just Prime 4. I do think there will be at least one other 2019 project that they'll surprise us with as well.
I just want some news, because that'll just satisfy me. Just any
news.
Just nudes? Yeah, it's coming. Sorry?
I said news or nudes.
Ideally, both. But yeah, just any type of news,
You know my number, Reggie.
Sorry?
I said, my number.
My body's ready now, Dad.
Oh. Hello there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be at least mentioned. It has to be. Because, when you mentioned the Yoshi, and then the Prime 4 reveal, many people didn't even pay attention to the Yoshi announcement afterwards. They were just still...
I was having a heart attack. I was trying... I needed defibrillators on myself to revive myself so that I could still play the game.
Yeah, I couldn't pay attention because I was mind blown as well as laughing at Etika when I was watching it. Yeah.
Which no hate on Yoshi. That game looks dope as hell. I'm totally gonna get it when it comes out. But Prime 4 priorities.
Yeah.
So, anyways, let's go on to another topic. We've been talking about this for a while now. So there's been a lot of mixed feelings on this, and a lot of rumors surfacing about the potential of a Prime 4 multiplayer mode. Again, I have a lot of mixed feelings on this myself, both for and against. And I believe we talked about this in our group Prime posting a little bit, but I want to hear your thoughts on a Prime 4 multiplayer mode and what you would want or not want out of that.
I think it should not have a multiplayer, mostly because this is the first entry to a new sort of take on the formula of the series, and just having multiplayer would make it feel a bit convoluted. And if you look at the track record for multiplayer in Metroid as a whole, it's not been the most successful. The best success it's had was in Metroid Prime Hunters, where the multiplayer was actually quite good, especially considering it's a DS game. But the single player really lacked, and that's my biggest concern. If the multiplayer was to be implemented, I hope it doesn't detract from the single player, because if it does, don't put it in. It's not worth the risk.
Yeah, that's basically my thoughts as well. Overall, if you just had to ask me on the flip of a coin, I'm not in favor of a multiplayer mode, though I do have some devil's advocates arguments in favor of it as well, but. The reasons I'm not in favor of it is pretty much what you just said. Metroid is and always will be about the single-player experience at its core. And if you devolve developer resources into a multiplayer mode, you have the potential to take away from the single-player mode. And whereas I don't think that was an issue with Echoes, you definitely saw that with Hunters, where the single player was pretty much just tacked on. And the trade-off for the multiplayer component, I don't think was really worth it. I mean, in terms of games that I remember, Echoes is far higher on that list than Hunters. And so I would want them. I would want them to focus their resources on the single player. And then a lot of people are saying, well, you got to have a multiplayer mode if you want an FPS to sell. And I just don't buy that at all. I think we've seen countless examples of shooters in the year that have sold well that didn't have to focus on multiplayer. You had Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, fantastic game if you haven't played it. While it wasn't a knockout success, it did well enough. It made enough profit, and it didn't have any multiplayer mode attached. The Doom 2016 game, while that did have a multiplayer mode, and while it does have its niche community, the reason people bought it was for the single player experience. And that game did gangbusters. Another game you absolutely must play. Personally, I wouldn't get it on the Switch though, just because I love that 60 FPS. But again, another topic for another time. But after my devil's advocate's argument in favor of it, so there is the possibility that you could have a separate studio work on the multiplayer, and thus you wouldn't have to worry about diverting resources from the main team working on the single player experience. And of course, there's just the possibility that maybe somebody has thought of a brilliant idea that we just haven't thought of that would work well in the Metroid universe that could adapt players from around the world. Nintendo is very creative with their online experiences, sometimes for better or worse. But it's really a coin flip in that direction. But sometimes it works out, and maybe somebody on that team has some brilliant idea of how to bring a Metroid experience into an online multiplayer experience and make it work well with a unique Metroid twist. And if they have that idea, then I would encourage them to fully execute that. What that idea would be, I simply do not know. But yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
If they're confident that they can implement a multiplayer without having to sacrifice things from the single player, then I'm all for it. Even if it's just a relatively simple shooter, even if it's just an online version of the Echoes multiplayer, I wouldn't mind that, because that's something. But if it would sacrifice parts from the single player, it's just no bother. Metroid doesn't need that.
I guess
especially when it's going so hot at the minute.
I guess to sum up my arguments is, add in a multiplayer mode if you think it adds to the experience. Don't add in one because you feel obligated to. That's my big takeaway, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So, our next topic that I have written on here is the music of Metroid Prime 4. What do we want to see out of music? Actually, I think I'll go first this time, because I've been handing it off to you first. I'll take the stage for a little bit this time. So yeah, in terms of music in Metroid Prime 4, I recently did an academic research paper on the ambiguous nature of Metroid Prime 1's music and how it uses acousmatic sound to interpret sounds of the environment that you can't hear. One of the examples I used was in the title sequence, where it pans around the inside of the Metroid, you don't actually hear the sound effects that it's making. However, the music itself that's playing, the title theme, throughout, it has all these squishy organic timbres permeating throughout it that give off the impression that this might be what it sounds like on the inside, even though the sounds are not directly coming from the creature itself. It's part of the actual music. And I thought that was one of the most brilliant steps that Prime 1's music took. I think it's one of the reasons that it remains so memorable to this day. And Kenji Yamamoto continues that trend throughout the Prime trilogy as well. And so we don't know who is composing the Metroid Prime 4 soundtrack at the moment. But if he were to return, I would hope that he implements more of those acousmatic elements into the score, because I feel like that is an essential part of Metroid Prime's music. And along with that, Metroid has typically gone in the direction of simulated instruments. And I think that should stay, but I also think it should incorporate live instrumentation into it as well. There's so many. I think one of the biggest examples is a Skytown Elysia from Metroid Prime 3, which is a phenomenal track, but it's a track that's simulating an orchestra, but without a live orchestra. The entire track, with the exception of some minor guitar work at the end, is all completely digitalized. And I think something like Skytown would really benefit from having a live orchestra, but also incorporating some of those electronic elements into it as well. Something like in '80s, combining '80s trance with live orchestra, I think would really benefit Metroid. And Metroid has kind of delved into orchestral elements here and there. Other M did it, and Federation Force was all simulated, but it tried to mimic a real life orchestra to its best degree. But for the most part, I think a lot of those attempts just came out as bland. There's a few gems hidden in those soundtracks, but overall, I think with somebody like Yamamoto, or perhaps even Daisuke Matsuoka, if he comes back from Samus Returns, I think they could do a lot of really cool stuff if they had the budget for a live orchestra and to be able to incorporate all those different genres of music together, because I think Metroid welcomes it in such a fascinating degree for a variety of scenarios, whether it be orchestras, guitars, or electronic elements. And so I'd love to see all those mixed and matched together with that acousmatic sound, and I think that could create a phenomenal experience, in my head at least.
I agree wholeheartedly as well. And whenever I think of Metroid music, I always come to Metroid Prime, because that's the game that basically set the foundation for Metroid music for me. I always come back to it whenever I want to listen to something, Metroid Prime. And something that I noticed as well, in Smash 4, they used a lot of orchestra there as well as Mario Kart 8. If you know, in the F-Zero tracks, they're actual instruments performed by real people, and it sounds amazing.
Yes.
Some of the best in the series.
The Mario Kart 8 soundtrack is fucking insane. I love every bit of it.
It really is. Like, I go back and listen to, particularly the F-Zero tracks.
Oh, yeah.
But I'd like to see Metroid do the same. But whenever I listen to Metroid Prime music as well, and just Metroid music in general, it feels very grand to me. Like, I imagine myself in this vast area, and I just look up just to the sky or the stars, and this music fits that scene and mood perfectly. I'd like that to be expanded upon. Like, I like Metroid music when it's giving off a grand vibe, and I think orchestra is like the perfect route for that.
When I think of Metroid music, while it's not my number one favorite track, when I think of just completely setting the mood, I think of landing on Talon 4 for the first time in Talon Overworld and hearing that first theme play. Like, that is like one of the most, probably in my experience, one of the most awe-inspiring moments I've had while playing a video game. I don't know, for me at least.
Like, there's just nothing like hearing the choir, the instruments, and hearing the rain in the environment as well. It's just all coming together to form this just awe-inspiring scene that you won't forget. You get out of your ship, you're in a forest, and you hear this soft but amazing and, as I say, grand music that just slowly comes in and then just blows you away with how amazing it is and how well it fuses with the world.
And it's such a great transition after just escaping the ship, which is this completely different destroyed environment, and you go to this much more peaceful state of nature without the burden of technology. I guess that was kind of the theme they were trying to set there, and it really works so well.
Yeah. There's just something about Metroid and just how it uses its music. It always just stands out to me as like one of the best in gaming, and I don't think anything could top it.
I don't think topping is the right word. I do think there are other soundtracks that are on that level, but I wouldn't really be able to I wouldn't really be able to say they're better or worse just because they're so vastly different. Like, for instance, the Super Mario Galaxy soundtrack is one of my favorites of all time, but it's also so different from the Metroid soundtracks.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Is there any particular composers you'd like? I mean, I feel like we both want to see Yamamoto-san return, but besides him, since he's a given, is there anybody else you'd like to see?
I'm not very good with names, but I would like the guy who did compose the Prime series, but also the guy who helped with Samus Returns. Well, not helped, but he mainly did it. It's like some of his tracks are phenomenal. Like I can't remember the track, but it's like Red Sword Brinstar. Water Caves, I think
Yes.
it is. Samus Returns? Yeah, Water Caves, Lower Brinstar.
I believe
is
that's
just
Area
phenomenal.
5.
I think it is as well. It's one of those, I can't remember, but that track,
It's funny because this was literally exactly what I was going to say. So so yeah, that's a Daisuke Matsuoka, and that was probably my first suggestion of someone that I would love to see because he did the majority of the soundtracks for Samus Returns. Yamamoto also did a few of them, including that Brinstar remix you mentioned, but Matsuoka did most of the original tracks, including my favorite track of the game, which is the Chozo Laboratory theme, which I absolutely cannot get enough of. I really hope they include that in the new Smash. I mentioned that as well on episode 1.
Yeah.
But
I want to know whoever made the Ridley tracks, get them back in.
I believe that was also Matsuoka, but I can't 100% confirm that.
Whoever did it, like every single individual who did that, I want them back.
Personally, the second one is my favorite. What about you?
The second one
Yeah.
easily. It screams Meta Ridley to me.
I just love the percussion on it.
Yeah, it's the three tracks. Too much to handle, man.
And then I also I think other great examples. The last Metroid theme at the very end, the do 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 do. I love that theme as well as they finally made a rendition of I believe Yamamoto and Matsuoka worked on this one. They finally did a rendition of the Surface theme that I really enjoy that matches the original. Because for so long the original Surface theme for SR3D, I've heard so many covers of it now, but while I don't think they were necessarily bad, I don't think they lived up to what the original was, and they finally got it. They finally got it in Samus Returns. I love that version to death. And so, yes, absolutely. Bring back Yamamoto. Bring back Matsuoka.
Bring everyone in.
And yeah, those would be my two top choices. I'd also be down to have Minako Hamano return. She did a lot of the stuff for Super Metroid. She did Ridley's theme, which has become pretty much iconic at this point. So
Oh, no way.
yeah. So I'd be down to have her come back as well. She did a little bit of stuff from Prime 3 as well with Yamamoto and Masaru Tajima, but I don't know exactly what she worked on. There isn't much information out there on most of the tracks in that game on specifically who worked on what.
Mm. Yeah, I want them all back.
Everybody who's ever worked on a Metroid game, come back.
Yeah, exactly. We don't count either one.
Who? So I guess the final thing I'd like to talk about on music specifically is so I guess I'll do the prelude first. So pretty much every single Metroid game has had a few tracks reprising from other games in the series, and so what tracks would you like to see make a cameo or leitmotif in Prime 4?
I would like to see Phendrana Drifts, because I don't recall the last time that's had a remix, if at all.
Hunter's had a remix.
Did it?
Yeah, in Arcterra, in the vault. I don't think it was a particularly good one, mind you, but it was there.
Yeah, I don't recall it. But yeah, I'd like an orchestral version.
Oh my god! Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, where also sort of plays windy sound effects as well.
Mhm.
Like you said with the Metroid Prime intro, where like you hear these like squelchy sounds that it could be the Metroid, but it's actually the song.
Uh-huh.
That'd be really cool.
I don't think Prime 3 had a direct cover of Fendrana Drifts, but I think when you go to that snow area, I think it uses a lot of the samples from
Mm.
not Fendrana Drifts, but from that very first cave you enter before you actually enter the main area. You know
Yeah,
which one?
it's-
You know what I'm talking? I think
yeah,
it
I
uses
know.
some of the samples from that room.
Yeah, it's like the same sort of notes, the high pitched bits.
Uh huh.
It heavily references that. But I'd like a full blown orchestral like redo of the main theme, or even of the depths version, because that's cool as well. Hey.
Oh, I'd be down to just bring that back without any changes.
Oh yeah, as well. It's like Magma Caverns has done
Because
that.
that track just got some fat beats.
Oh yeah.
My top choice, and I mentioned this on our failed attempt at recording this, is the Crateria surface theme from Super Metroid. Specifically, when you return to the surface, not when you initially land, but returning from Brinstar Red. That is one of my favorite Metroid tracks of all time, and it has shockingly never returned in any single game. It hasn't even been referenced in a Smash Brothers soundtrack. And
Which is really bizarre, because if anywhere, it would be there.
and of all the soundtracks, that could definitely benefit from an orchestral arrangement. It's such a triumphant theme, and I would love to see that reinterpreted with a higher budget, with higher quality instruments, with all the knowledge that these composers have learned throughout the years, and how they have adapted Metroid score. I would be so excited to hear that. I'd probably start tearing up.
Yeah, I understand why. And since at least I think it was Samus's theme, so why not? You may as
Yeah.
well.
Which I don't understand. It was called the theme of Samus Aran, but then it sucks because I saw the track title for that in Brawl and I got so excited, like no way! But it's like, oh, it's the Super Metroid credits with the incorrect title. Okay.
Yeah, it didn't really make sense, and it had like this little weird, awkward like voiceover. It's like Samus is under fire. I think.
Well, no, well that was in a different. That was on the Brinstar cover.
Was it?
Yeah.
I'm probably just getting them mixed up.
Yeah, there was voiceover for that, and there was a voiceover in the Prime title theme and credits sequence as well.
Wasn't that the voice in that from the European version?
It wasn't the same. It was the same. It was the same dialogue, but it wasn't the same voice.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe, or actually,
I'll have to
maybe
check.
it could have been this. It could have been the same. Because now that I think about it, they do sound kind of similar.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, I'll have to look that up. I'm curious
Yeah.
now. All right. Well, the guy's name is Jay Ward, so I'll look up his I don't know, his resume, I guess.
Yeah.
Speaking of voice actors, let's deviate from music and go to our next topic, which is voice acting. We are not even halfway through this list. We are going on. This is gonna be a long podcast.
Yeah. And I'm pumped. I want to talk about everything.
Talk about all the things.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? The hype train is a long ride, so enjoy your stay.
I'm gonna need some money for the drinks, some snacks.
I thought you were gonna say something else. It sounded like you were going somewhere with that.
No, that's fine. I couldn't think of what else to say.
Voice acting, Metroid Prime 4. Do we want it? Do we not want it? And if so, how would you like to see it implemented?
I preferably don't want to see it. However, like this is like an obvious thing. Samus shouldn't speak, especially when you're playing as her. Because if, like multiple people have suggested this, if they implement her voice in a way that is very similar to the Master Chief, specifically like from Halo 1 to 3, it could work, and even then it should be limited. I prefer her not to talk at all, but if there was to be any type of voice acting, I'd want it to be in the trailer, so there could be a lot of memes, but also
Memes come first.
yeah, it has to. But I also wouldn't mind Silex having even one line of dialogue because people aren't even sure if he's human. So having him speak in English, because like all the other aliens in Metroid never speak English, as far as I just immediately felt that because Rundus does.
Yeah, all the hunters in Prime 3.
Yeah, crap. But yeah, like I'd want him to speak because to a lot of people this is going to be their first introduction to Silex, and they're not going to know who he is. So if he like at least says his either motivation or intention, I think that could really work. And of course, you could not have any dialogue at all and have like his plans like in a logbook to be scanned or something. But if there's any character, I wouldn't mind having at least one line of dialogue as Silex. And I'm going under the assumption that Silex is like one of the main plot points.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat as you, in very specific circumstances. So, in terms of Samus not having a voice, okay, how do I word this? So, if the adventure is similar to a Metroid Prime style adventure where she's not really interacting with any NPCs, then yes, I don't think that she should have any voiceover at all. However, if it's something like Metroid Prime 3 where she is interacting with a lot of NPCs, I do think she should have a voiceover because otherwise it just sounds really awkward to have somebody talking to you and you not responding, which happens a lot in Prime 3, and it's really weird and off-putting in quite a bit of scenes. And so
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be any Shakespearean "Alas, poor York." We don't need any other M monologues, any Pierce My Heart
Christ.
references. We don't need any of that. But we, just as you mentioned, with like Halo 1 through 3, where you have Master Chief speaking, but it's not really frequent. It's just in areas where it makes sense, and that's about it. There's no, and so yeah, that's pretty much my two ways about it. If you're going to have NPCs, I think you have to give Samus a voiceover to make it not sound awkward, kind of like it did in Prime 3. If it is isolationist, don't have her talk at all.
Yeah, I agree. Because it happens a lot in Zelda as well, especially in the early games, where like NPCs would talk to you and they'd ask you a question. You can't respond. It gives the impression that you spoke, but you don't see any dialogue. Link doesn't move. It happens in Pokemon as well, and it's just a bit awkward.
Splatoon does the
yeah.
same thing too, but like they're self-aware of it and they joke about it, so it works.
Yeah, that's understandable.
But like,
Yeah, I agree with what you said.
yeah, so cool. Well, that was a surprisingly short topic compared to everything else we've discussed.
Yeah, this voice acting isn't a prominent thing in Metroid, so
Yeah. So yeah, we hinted about this next one earlier. Let's talk about 2D lore crossover. I think I believe this is the point where we were recording on Saturday where I realized that that things weren't going as I planned.
yeah.
So luckily, all of this from this point on shouldn't be us retreading. We should actually be divulging in original thoughts from this point on.
Yeah.
So 2D lore crossover. Don't.
Is that lost?
Oh, goddamn, kill me right now. All right, 2D lost. God damn it, you got me saying it now. It's like that. That's it. I'm ending the podcast here, just like last time. We're done. GG.
Yeah. Rip.
2D lore crossover. Do we want it? Do we not want it? Do we think it's going to happen? I'm gonna go first on this one. Goddamn.
Go ahead.
I don't think 2D lore crossover is going to happen, unfortunately, which is something I really have wanted to happen in the Prime games. Although we have been getting closer and closer to it, so it is possible that in the future it's only a matter of time. I don't think it's going to happen with Prime 4, though. But I have mentioned this, including in the last episode, that Samus Returns It brought in Proteus Ridley, which was a clear reference to Meta Ridley from the Metroid Prime games, as well as a bunch of musical cues that were used throughout the game that originated in the Prime games. And so I do think with that I do think the gap is slowly being bridged between the two, the Prime games and the 2D original trilogies. I kind of call them the Sakamoto and the Tanabe games because they're pretty much the respective directors of each series. And then and so I would like to see that point come eventually. I don't think it's going to happen with Prime 4. I think you'll see little references here and there how like Prime, the Prime trilogy, it has musical cues from the original games, or how Prime 1 it referenced Planet Zebes. But I think any direct references beyond that, I don't think you're going to see that.
Yeah, I would like very subtle references, like for example, the music cues you mentioned for Samus Returns, and even Proteus Ridley. It's like you could miss that at first glance, because especially if you're not caught up in Prime. But I wouldn't like them to flat out reference each other, especially because it's like the events of the Prime series isn't really relevant to the main series. Because you wouldn't see in like Super Metroid a phase-on reference. It's not really relevant because that's stuff's come and gone. But I also wouldn't want flat out references to like the original Metroid Prime, or not Metroid Prime, the original Metroid. Because again, that's not entirely relevant. But like music cues, even subtle references, like just a mention of something from there, like a planet, like you said for Metroid Prime, but nothing so concrete as that's from there.
I'm kind of in the same boat with you, with a couple of exceptions, because I don't want them to just reference that for the sake of, hey, did you guys see that? Did you guys see that? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like, I don't want them. I want them to reference, like you said, I want them to reference stuff where it makes sense to, in terms of actual story and lore. I think where I disagree with that though is I do think there are a couple of key points where you could reference that in a way that makes sense. Particularly with Silex, because a lot of people have kind of had this fan theory going on. Whether this turns out to be true or not, we don't know, but at the end of Federation Force, spoilers if you even give a shit about that, after the end credits sequence, so in Federation Force, there's a mission where you steal the last of the Metroids that the space pirates currently hold, and you bring 2 of them back onto your ship. At the end credits sequence, you see Silex break into that ship and steal one of the Metroids. And so that's obviously going to play a factor in Prime 4 more than likely. And so a lot of people have been speculating, well, what if the events that Silex caused with the Metroid are what make the Federation decide to send Samus off to SR3D8 to exterminate all the Metroids? And I think in that sense, that could be a really cool lore connection if they decided to go that route, because I actually think that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, in terms of that makes a lot of sense, because it works for the like overarching like don't know how to word this, but it just makes sense in the entire sort of timeline. It's like something that happened before this caused this. Something like that I don't mind, because it's like it actually makes sense and it matters to the other games. Yeah, I agree with what you said.
Alright, cool. So, our next topic. Will Metroid Prime 4 reinvent the Metroid formula? This is a really interesting topic because I really don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with Prime. I mean, none of us do. That's a stupid thing to say. No, none of us know what's going to happen. We don't know if they're going to play it safe or whether they're going to make a radical departure from the series. Something like Breath of the Wild, where they redefine the entire conventions of the series. And I've heard a bunch of different stuff on the internet regarding this topic. And here's my thoughts. Because I don't have any specific ideas of what I'd want to see with Prime 4, but I do want to see them take a risk and redefine Metroid conventions. However, there's a big but, and I cannot lie. I do not want them I do not want them to just make Breath of the Wild with a Metroid skin. I've heard a lot of people propose that, and that is specifically what I do not want. Breath of the Wild worked in the context of a Zelda game. Just because it redefined those conventions, though, doesn't mean you can just take that format and apply it to every single game. There are certain elements of Metroid that make it unique that are not present in Zelda, and I don't want just Zelda with a Metroid skin. I don't want Skyrim with guns.
Yeah, he's talking about Fallout, pal. But no, I agree that it's, and I've seen a lot of people say that they want a completely open world Metroid game. I don't like that personally, because what's Metroid without an overabundance of doors? And like even then, like the doors could be used for puzzles. You wouldn't be able to do that with open world.
Well, I do think you actually could do a Metroid game without a door. Metroid 2 hardly has any doors. The only time there's a door is if an item is locked behind a door. And even then, it's a missile door, which you start off with missiles at the beginning of the game anyway. So I do think there actually is a way to do a Metroid game without doors. It's just we haven't really seen that outside of the original Metroid 2. Even Samus Returns reincorporated doors into the formula.
Yeah, exactly. In like my thoughts in terms of if they'll reinvent it at all, I think they'll play it safe, because from what we've seen and what we currently know is that they're leaning very heavily on Metroid Prime 1 specifically. It's like you could tell in the original title, the trailer announcement, it's the Metroid Prime 1 theme. And Reggie himself has said that they're focusing on Metroid Prime 1. I think he said it in an interview or in the E3 itself, I think. No, it wouldn't have been in the E3, but it would have been somewhere else. But I think they're going to play it safe.
I really don't know. I'm not leaning in a direction one way or another of what direction I think they'll go in. I don't know, but yeah, I hope they surprise us.
Yeah. I hope they have their own little twist, though.
Mm-hmm. Wow, we're actually approaching the end of this now. So we have a couple more topics to go over. Basically, the last thing that I have here is just kind of a freestyle session. We talked about pretty much anything I could think of, but this last one is just in general. What do we want and don't want to see in Prime 4? So this can be in any subcategory you can think of. There's no nothing else attached to it. What do you want and not want in Prime 4? I don't want 343 to be developing Prime 4.
That's a given. In terms of what I want to see new spins on certain things. Like, for example, the beams. I'd want to see new little twists. Like, I'm not too sure what I could think of it, like, off the top of my head, but, like, they know what they're doing. Like, I don't want to just see the wave beam, ice beam, plasma beam. I want to see kind of new versions, like how Metroid Prime 2 had the light beam, the dark beam, and the annihilator beam. I'd like to see something like that. But it wouldn't surprise me if they go the ice wave plasma route. But I'd like to see a little change. But there's also something I don't want to see, is that they be cheesy in terms of how the story in the game is. It's hard to put into words, but I don't want it to be practically a Metroid Prime remake, like, and just remaster. I want it to be its own game.
Mm-hmm. So the first thing that comes to my mind is regarding Silex. I want them to do him justice, because they have been hyping Silex up now for over 10 years now, since the ending of Prime 3, where we saw his ship follow Samus, which, yes, has officially been confirmed by Tanabe to be Silex's ship. They've been hyping that up for over a decade now, and so I don't need Silex to be, on the level of Voss from Far Cry. I don't need him to be like this game-changing villain. I just need him to be good. I need, because if you really think about it, the Metroid villains none of them are really deep by any means. They're but they're fun villains, and and obviously Silex, I think it's safe to say he'll be a fun villain. I'd like him to be a little more. I'd like him to have some sort of interesting motivation. And again, it doesn't have to be like on the level of Thanos in Infinity War with with this incredible tragic backstory and all that, but give him something maybe on the level of like, I don't know, maybe Ego from Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Don't mince my words. I'm not saying to make Silex Ego. That's fucking stupid. I mean, like, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they make him somewhat sympathetic, or where you can sort of see yourself in Silex. Like, he has his own motivations where he knows something about the Federation, because he has Federation tech, and I assume like he knows his way around.
I just figured it out.
What's that?
Silex was the leader the whole time.
You blew my mind, man. I'm so
heart.
shocked that I'm fumbling my words.
It just clicked.
Oh my god. But in all seriousness, I think what they could do is something I quite like, is he drops subtle hints that the Federation aren't the best, and really in the timeline this would be like, presuming this is after Federation Force, this would be the first time Samus is really exposed to that.
Yeah.
So I think this could like set the spiral where Samus like ultimately turns on the Federation in Fusion. So like,
even though she should have turned on them by Other M, but we don't talk about that.
In my head, Other M's not canon. It contradicts too many things. But I'd like Silex to drop subtle hints that the Federation isn't all that good. And like, while Silex himself isn't exactly supreme in any sense of the word, it's like he's the greater of two evils, so Samus has to prioritize him. And like, by the end, Silex, like, at least by the end of the storyline to do with Silex, like, it starts to play on Samus a little bit. Like, you just see her like head like tilt in thought as she like reminisces about Silex. That would be really cool, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that just kind of plays into my Metroid lore fan fiction that I'd love to see, in that Silex starts planting those seeds, and then by the time we see Samus in Fusion, she's on the run from the Federation, and she needs a place to hide out. What better place to hide out than with Silex, where they could reunite and finally be on the same page? But I don't think that's ever going to happen.
No, because like, Silex hates Samus as well. Not only for like, as far as I'm aware, it's not only for being with the Federation. There's something more. And
well, even beyond that, I just going back to kind of 2D lore. I don't think we'll ever see the games cross over to that degree where they're just where you flat out need to play the Prime games in order to understand events from a 2D game, and vice versa.
Oh, I hope they don't do that, because like, you should be able to play, Zero Mission, Samus Returns, Super, and then Fusion.
Yeah.
But it would be cool to be able to connect what Silex does to Samus Returns as well.
But yeah, so yeah, I think we're pretty much on the same page on that regard. Anything else you do or don't want to see? I'm trying to think of other stuff right now.
I don't want to see Ridley.
Same.
As awesome as he is probably one of my favorite villains, and as amazing as the fight in Samus Returns is to me, I don't want to see him again. Like, at least not yet. I want the focus to be on Silex in terms of who's the ultimate villain.
I love Ridley, but like, I'm all Ridley'd out. He's in pretty much every single Metroid game, and like, he again, like, we talk about surprises all the time. If Ridley was in the game, that would be the most unsurprising milquetoast thing that I could imagine. Just like, oh, another Ridley fight. Okay.
Yeah.
Hell, Prime 2, or not Prime 2, Prime 3 had 2 Ridley fights.
Yeah, it's like, I think like the first one is absolutely incredible.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really awesome. But it's like, by the time the second one, it's like, oh, you're back. Again.
And the battle's nowhere near as cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's kind of a disappointment, to be honest, in Prime 3. But if he was to appear in Prime 4, it also wouldn't really make sense because he gets completely obliterated in corruption, and then suddenly he's here. And yeah, you could say that's a criticism for Samus Returns, and that's why I was going to say maybe by the end have Ridley appear in like a Bacta tank or something, where he's regenerating.
Here's what I would like to see in terms of Ridley, and this is assuming a very specific scenario. So, assuming Prime 4 isn't just one game and it's kind of like the start of a new trilogy, I'd like to see him appear at the very end in like a Prime 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
But not until then. Give us some space from Ridley, because I'm on a Ridley overdose right now, which is weird to say considering the Metroid drought we've been in, but
yeah, and plus that would make Ridley's fight in Prime 6 so much more refreshing. It's like,
exactly.
Yes, we get to fight him now. It's like it's with Ridley at the minute, it's like it's too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
So if we leave him until Prime 6, where he could potentially be like a final boss, in where he's like trying to regenerate again, or something like that.
Yeah, it's one of the givens in a Metroid game. You're gonna lose all your upgrades, and 2, you're gonna fight Ridley.
Yeah, at this point, anyway.
So yeah, that I feel like there's a bunch of other stuff that I'd love to add, but they're just not at the top of my head right now in terms of what I would and would not want to see. I hope they release a collector's edition, because I like.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd really like that.
I like that stuff, and I hate money apparently when it comes to Metroid. So. Yeah,
like I bought the Legacy edition for Samus Returns, and I can't emphasize enough how much I love it.
So here's the thing. You live in Europe, so that's not a big deal at all.
Yeah.
Because that was only available in Europe. I had to import 2 of those fuckers over to the US.
Yeah, I feel so sorry for you.
One to keep it in box as a collector's item, and then one so that I could unbox and display all of the contents inside. And that was roughly $300 in total. Plus, I had to buy the game because the 3DS is region locked, so I can't play any of them.
Oh, that sucks. It should have been a global thing.
It's the things I do for Metroid, but it's okay. It was worth it. It was so worth it.
One more thing. I want the game to sell well.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, let's talk a little bit about that before we head out. Because I think Nintendo has horribly botched their marketing attempts when it comes to Metroid in recent years. They always treat Metroid like it's on the level of Zelda and Mario, and this was especially apparent with Metroid Prime 2 and 3. Metroid Prime 2 in particular, which released just days after Halo 2, which rest in peace, Metroid Prime 2. Let's just say that.
It's like Metroid Prime was the only one that sold well because there was nothing major coming out at the time. Whereas Metroid Prime 2 that released in between Halo 2 and Half-Life 2, Halo 3 released in between Halo 3.
And Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yeah, exactly. Gears of War as well, as far as I can remember.
No, Gears was 2006. Prime 2 was 2004.
Oh, I was on about Prime 3, sorry.
Oh, well, that also didn't release with Gears. That released with Halo 3.
Yeah, so
that released the same month as Halo 3 because Nintendo didn't learn their lesson.
It's no wonder that we had a drought and it wasn't selling well. I hope they release it on its own, like they did with Prime.
Well, they don't even necessarily have to release it on its own, but release it. Don't release it in the fall when you have all these major, massive hitter AAA titles coming out during the time. I think January would be a good time to release it, because this year, I think January we got Dragon Ball FighterZ and Monster Hunter World. I think that would have been a perfect time frame to release Metroid Prime 4 in.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, Metroid Prime 4, as much as I want Metroid Prime 4 to be a system seller, as it's my favorite series of all time, I assume you feel the same way. The reality, reality just doesn't reflect our opinions on the matter. It's not. Metroid is a niche series. You know, and Nintendo has shown that they can turn stuff around and get their money's worth out of niche series. They did it massively with Fire Emblem, which was almost about to not come to the US anymore, and then all of a sudden they completely turned it around with Awakening, I believe. And ever since then, it's been this really popular niche title amongst hardcore Nintendo fans, and they found a way to get money out of that, and they're starting to kind of do that with Xenoblade as well. And they could do the same thing with Metroid if they treat it the same, if they market it smart. You know, get in a decent marketing. You don't have to over market it, because this game still needs to make profit, and if you spend too much on marketing, that's going to take away from the profits. But spend a decent amount on marketing. Market it smartly. Market it with your ambassadors. Put it on, get it on some good ad spots, and most importantly of all, don't release it as a filler title, because people aren't going to buy a Switch. Most people aren't going to buy a Switch for Prime 4. However, it's going to be a title that people might buy if let's say an Animal Crossing, or I'm trying to think what other major, an Animal.
Fox.
Well, I wouldn't even. I'd say Metroid's bigger than Star Fox, so I wouldn't even say that. Animal Crossing is the only one that's coming to mind right now. But let's say some big title that's some big system seller titles coming out at the end of the year in like November. Have Metroid Prime 4 accommodate that in maybe like the summer or January or even December. I think it could do really well in Christmas time.
Like, I've had like a little system in my head of how it could be like released in terms of system selling games. It's like this year it's obviously Smash.
Oh yeah, obviously. And Pokemon. Smash and Pokemon is good. Even though I don't give a shit about Pokemon, like I know friends who specifically said they weren't getting a Switch, and then the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee trailer came out. It's like, well, guess I'm getting a Switch now. I've seen more posts of that than even Smash, so I would argue that that's an even bigger system seller just for a more casual audience. But definitely in terms of pure hype, obviously Smash is like eclipses everything else, and for good reason too. It's fucking Smash Brothers.
Yeah, exactly, and it's just amazing in general. And it doesn't surprise me that people like change their minds when Pokemon gets on the Switch, because Pokemon is like the best-selling franchise of all time, from what I've heard. But I've heard it be that it's Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee isn't even the main game. It's not Generation 8. That's coming out next year, I think.
Yeah.
So what I've thought is this year it's Smash. Next year it's Pokemon. And maybe 2020 it's Metroid Prime 4.
Maybe. But again, I don't want them to market it as the big system seller of that year.
To be fair, what else is there?
I can't really think of anything. But
yeah, I mean, there's another Zelda in the works, but I think that's way off.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's definitely a ways off, especially to follow up on Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's kind of how it could be, and I think it should be like that because of the hype that Metroid Prime 4 generated, and like some people are only buying, like a lot of people are only buying the Switch because Prime's on there, and that Metroid is getting attention on there.
Well, again,
it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, again, we have to go out of our own bubble, because obviously within our own bubble, there's a lot of people within the Metroid fan community that are now like, well, Prime's coming, so I guess I got to get a Switch now. But if you talk to the general public, like if I walked up to any of my other friends right now and it's be like, hey, Metroid's coming to Switch, so when are you getting a Switch? They'd be like, what?
Yeah.
So again, it's not the kind of game that people are going to buy a Switch for, but I think could serve well as a game that people could get if they're bored waiting for a game that they're really looking forward to come out in the period of what could be a long drought. That's pretty much what the indie titles have served right now on the eShop.
Yeah, that's a fair enough point.
Only this would be Metroid Prime 4, which would obviously do much better than even those.
Combined, I'd say.
Yeah. So yeah. The last thing, kind of the finale for this whole Metroid Prime 4 speculation blowout episode, why are we excited about this?
It's Metroid.
You fucking idiot. What kind of a fucking question is that?
Yeah, exactly. Whoever isn't excited for it is brain dead. But no, it's Metroid Prime on the Switch. On the Nintendo Switch, there's a Metroid game. And the last good main console game that was
Keyword.
Metroid, yeah, good, was Metroid Prime 3. And that was like 11 years ago.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
a
just
long
about.
time.
August 27th will be its 11th anniversary.
That's really cool. But like, Metroid missed an entire generation on the Wii U. So I think because of that, like, that thirst for a new Metroid game on that type of hardware, because if you look at Samus Returns, imagine how that could have been like on the Switch.
I know.
The
Just imagining,
it's like,
even without updated textures, just imagining it at 60 frames, like, ugh.
yeah, it's like the game itself, even on the 3DS, is amazing. It looks phenomenal. It's probably one of the best 3DS games to play, in my opinion.
And surprisingly good 3D effects too, which I usually hate
I'd say
3D.
it's the best that uses that. I haven't seen another game that uses it well, let alone amazing. But like, imagining that on the Switch, Samus's gravity suit, the Queen Metroid, Proteus Ridley, the backgrounds, it's like, this could have looked several times better. We would have been gobsmacked. And now we're going to get that with Metroid Prime 4. We're going to see stuff like that for the Switch. And it's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, that pretty much echoes my thoughts in general. Metroid Prime 3 was pretty much the last game I want to say that was universally loved by the Metroid fan community. Other M kind of caused this giant rift within us, and while I think, and yeah, I don't want to shit all over everyone, because there are some people who legitimately do like Other M, and we'll save that for the memes. But I don't want to just randomly shit on them.
Yeah.
But basically, yeah, Other M caused a big split in the fan community, and it was kind of sad, because for the first, pretty much since I was in elementary school, the Metroid fan community was always such a wonderful place to hang out in. And then after Other M, the rift occurred, and then on top of that, the drought that ensued because of Other M's low performance, that didn't help things as well. And then Federation Force got announced in 2015, which was the exact opposite of what we were begging Nintendo for in every sense of the word. And so that didn't help things. And honestly, Federation Force in the end wasn't terrible. It wasn't great by any means, but it was pretty subpar.
Yeah.
But
at least
when
it
Federation,
rumored and hinted.
Yeah, but when Federation Force came out, we were wondering at this point, like, has Nintendo just given up on the Metroid series? Like, we didn't know what was going on at this point, and that coupled with AM2R getting shut down, which just like you, I absolutely fell in love with that fan project. But AM2R getting shut down, which honestly should have been a hint for the future to come, but
Yeah.
But we thought, like, between that and Federation Force, like, is this the end of the Metroid series? Has Nintendo just lost complete faith that we're just gonna get spin-off shovelware Metroid titles that don't really represent this franchise at its prime? Pun not intended.
Oh.
And then E3 2017 happened, and Nintendo that was pretty much Nintendo's statement saying that we haven't left you guys behind. They announced Samus Returns in Metroid Prime 4, and I will never forget that day. I was genuinely in shock. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. My friend was terrified for good reason, but like,
Yeah.
and honestly, like, by the time Samus Returns was announced, I was legitimately in tears, because it was just such an incredible moment, and Metroid has impacted me on such a personal level to see Metroid brought back on this scale. And
Yeah.
and to tie it all back to Prime 4, that's what makes Prime 4 so significant. And then beyond that, like you mentioned, it's on the Switch. We've never had a Metroid game with modern day HD textures before. And while I'm a proponent of gameplay over graphics, that's not to say that graphics aren't super cool when they're utilized right. And the Metroid Prime series has always been pretty much the forefront of graphical capabilities. I will still argue to anybody that Metroid Prime 2 is the best looking game by far out of any game in that console generation. Even on the PC, that game looks better than it has any right to. Prime 3 not so much because it was on the Wii, which was underpowered compared to the other consoles, but for what the Wii could do, it used every inch of that processing power. And to see what Tanabe and his new team are going to be able to use on the Switch, what they're going to be able to make that game look like, I am incredibly excited. And while the Switch technically is still underpowered compared to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, it's nowhere near as large of a gap as it was in the Wii generation with the 360 and the PS3. And so I'm so excited to finally see what Samus is going to look like in HD, which I guess technically we know what it looks like because we had Smash on the Wii U, but that doesn't count.
No. I say Metroid Prime 1 looks the best, because I still look at that and I still get gobsmacked at how amazing it looks. Not to discredit Prime 2, but just to imagine how Metroid Prime 4 could look. Because comparing Super Mario Odyssey to let's just say Super Mario Sunshine, it's practically night and day.
Oh yeah,
there's such a difference. And now that's going to happen to Metroid.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the texture work. Well, I feel like a better comparison would be Galaxy to Odyssey, since we did get Prime 3 on the Wii.
Yeah, that is true.
Even so, that's still a night and day difference, though.
Yeah,
the individual hair follicles that Mario has, and the texture, the textures on his overalls.
You can see the skin texture. It's amazing.
And even stuff like light, and even the inclusion of all these new anime. Like, Mario has never been more animated in any game, period. They ramped, and just that additional detail and animation brings out so much more of the character. And while obviously you're not going to have bouncy Samus nose physics, and
what would be cool though is a little head bob for the helmet. That'd be quite cool.
How would that work though if it's in first person?
Because yeah, that's a good point actually.
That is one of the few things we do know about that game, is that Reggie confirmed it will still be a first person adventure.
Yeah. I hope you still see the reflection of Samus when you shoot a charge beam.
I feel like that was a pretty important detail that's been in all the games since the first, so I don't see why that wouldn't be in there again.
Yeah. What Samus model are they going to use?
That's actually I hope they do a completely new Various suit redesign. I want them to take a lot of influence from the Prime 2 and 3 model, but I hope they make little tweaks and edits. Because one thing I will say is, we shit on 343 and the new Halo Trilogy quite a bit, but actually one thing I really do like is I love the new Master Chief model that they've used. They took it's loosely based off the Halo 2 and 3 models, but they've implemented much better texture work, and the design still looks overall the same, but it looks it's a lot more trimmed down where it needs to be, and beefier where it needs to be, it really gives off the persona of a super soldier even better than I think 2 and 3 did, and so that's my one compliment I'll give to 343. Is I do think their texture work and their modeling has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it ends there, but
yeah. That's one less competitor, at least for Prime 4.
Yeah.
At least next to that, and they'll be fine.
But that is something I would love to see. Is I'd love to see I'd love to see the Varia suit updated because I mean, especially now that we got Metroid in HD, there's so much room for little details and intricate texture works. I mean, like even like I mentioned with Odyssey, now that Mario has like individual textures on his clothing now, they're not just flat textures. They he has individual hair follicles. Minor details like that go a long way into bringing life out of the suit.
One suggestion I have is, like, for example, if you're idle for a while, like they did in like the original trilogy, where like Samus would interact with her cannon, I'd like a little expansion on that. Like her, like for example, parts of her cannon comes off and like she interacts with it and then puts it back. Like you could even like see the inner workings of the arm cannon as well.
Oh, that'd be so dope.
It really would be.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of one of Zero Suit Samus's idle animations where she plays with the paralyzer and it does all these weird contortions and all that. I think something like that with Samus's arm cannon in the idle animation would be pretty dope.
Yeah, I love little touches like that. It's like the little things I think will carry it quite far.
So yeah, that wraps up this big Metroid Prime 4 hype train, speculation, blowout, whatever you want to call it. At the time of recording, we are less than a week away from Nintendo's presentation, and by the time this gets uploaded, we'll be that much closer. So, man, it's
so exciting.
It's exciting times. I'm so happy because next week I have family reunion to go to, but it's after the presentation, so I'll still be able to watch it. And so
E3 comes first.
Obviously. No, E3,
Yeah.
like, I'm without exaggeration, E3 is my favorite holiday of the year. And I honestly mean that. It's the one day where I always make sure to take it off from work. And yeah. And part of it is the hype, because for some conferences I'm hyped, and then there's other conferences that I'm just so excited to see, like, how they fuck up, like EA's conference. I'm sure that's just going to be a shit show, and I'm so excited to see that crash and burn.
Yeah. But Nintendo's, like, kind of the one that's been consistently exciting, and I love it.
Well, recently, they've had, there was 2008.
Yeah, no one's going to remember that.
But yeah. So yeah, this is the time where we start plugging everybody. Brandon, where can everybody find you at?
You can find me on Twitter @SmashNippy, and there'll be further things there. Can't remember my YouTube name at the minute.
I actually need to follow you on Twitter. I believe I follow you on YouTube. I still need to follow your Twitter though.
Well, I'll follow you on Twitter as well. Follow for follow.
Hey, Stalkers Unite.
Hey.
I also think I'll plug something on behalf of both of us. We'll do a little bit of storytelling. So, just over a year ago, you formed a Facebook group called Metroid Morph Ball Posting, and it was kind of as dead as Metroid was at the time, to be frank.
Yeah, which is true.
So you are the founder, and you still are the founder and main admin of the group. So why don't you tell us a little bit of the story about the journey that this group has been on?
Well, I formed it because there wasn't any Metroid shitposting groups that I could see that were good anyway.
Yeah.
Like they either had like 50 members or like 10. So I was like, I want to try and form one that will do well and people will really like. Because I was in like Melee Hell and Smash Hell and stuff like that, and especially Star Wars Sith posting.
Oh my
Those
god!
were probably some of the funniest moments of recent memory. I really wanted to emulate that, but just with Metroid. And the original name was Metroid Morph Ball Posting, and it was like that for several months. Then I can't remember the guy's name, but it's Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie.
He started to share posts all over the place. Nintendo Switch posting, in Bionicle posting, like even like sort of smaller groups, and then people just started flooding in. I'm talking like 50 to 100 people in like a week, and we're now about 850 people, and it's absolutely amazing. I'm really chuffed that it's gotten this big. And then someone mentioned that the name is a bit odd considering it takes a while to say Metroid Morph Ball posting. So I looked in the like comments and posts, and someone suggested Metroid Prime posting, and I'm like, that is way too good to deny, and I immediately changed the name to that. Was that you that suggested that?
No, I didn't. I think what happened is I think Charlie posted a poll of different, and he left the poll open for people to suggest, and I think somebody, I can't remember if it was Charlie himself or somebody else, but somebody put Metroid Prime posting in the poll, and I think everybody kind of unanimously agreed, like, dude, that's perfect.
Yeah, and like as soon as I saw that, I was like, I need to change it to that immediately. And from then on, it's been called that. It's gotten relatively successful as well. Like some of the posts are absolute legendary status.
Yeah, we definitely, like, by the end of the year, we need to do like rank, like do a top members kind of thing, like the other shit posting groups do.
Oh hell yeah! I'm gonna always be biased and put myself at number one.
I'm
but-
definitely, probably my number one is gonna have to be Lucas.
Yeah, he's brilliant as well.
My fucking favorite one he did. I'll post a picture of this in the podcast video so the 5 people watching this in the audience can see. But there was this one he did with This Is America video by Childish Gambino where he's shooting the other guy, and he photoshopped Adam's face on Gambino, and then the person he's shooting is Samus's face. That is the best shit I've ever seen.
Too good. And I'd say like my personal MVP is Charlie.
Dude, Charlie has some good shit too.
Sorry?
Charlie has some good. Charlie is the MVP just for resurrecting the group. Like,
yeah, that's my reason. It's like he has amazing memes as well, but he is kind of the sole reason as to why it got so big.
Yeah.
I won't say like complete sole reason. It's like you shared several things as well, but it's like he's the one that kind of kicked it off.
He was the catalyst.
Yeah, and like when he did that, and then I noticed like how many people were rolling in. I'm like, I need to promote you. Like you've done amazing stuff.
Like I was.
Speaking of which, I should probably do that to you, considering.
Do what? I didn't hear you.
Make you a moderator if you'd like.
Maybe eventually after we get more members, because we don't really need any additional moderators at the moment. Like,
yeah,
I don't really see what I'd be able to add, and like I don't want to add too many moderators to the group because like I don't know if you remember the original Metroid Metropolis when it got hacked.
Ah.
Yeah,
I remember that.
That was due to an overabundance of moderators that just kept being added, and so I think it's just generally best to keep it safe because right now we don't need any moderating as it is.
Not really, no.
We haven't really had any situations where we've needed to delete this.
Yeah, apart from like that one like horrendous image of Samus turning into a Birdo head. That doesn't leave my feed for some reason. It's constantly there, it never goes, and it's really starting to annoy me and creep me out now. Yeah, that group is doing amazing at the minute, and I'm really chuffed, and I think it's gonna do really well by the time of E3.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Because
like there'll be memes for when it shows up, but there'll also be memes for if it doesn't.
Yes. Oh my gosh! I actually just got an idea in my head.
Oh hell yeah! We need more.
Yeah. So we were talking about this earlier, but I am sitting on a stockpile of memes for post Metroid E3 this year, where I'm just gonna be spamming the page in regards to Metroid Prime 4. It's gonna be beautiful.
I'm gonna love every second.
It's basically a nuclear arms race. And I'm
Hell
still
yeah.
making more at the moment. It's...
I'll join that race as well.
But yeah, that about, I'm trying to think, do I have... Oh yeah, so, yeah, more stuff to plug. So that was Metroid Prime posting. On behalf of Darren, who's not with us today, I'd also like to plug a really kick-ass Shine Sparkers interview that he did recently with I believe, I want to say Clark Wen is his name. He was the lead audio designer for Metroid Primes 1 and 2. It's a really cool interview that has a lot of new details that he's provided, and so I highly encourage everybody to check that out.
It's weird how I've not seen that yet. I'm gonna go see that after this.
Yeah, go check it. It's a really well done interview by Darren, so props out to him for that. And then last couple things that I'd like to plug on my end. As I mentioned before, I did an academic research paper on ambiguity in Metroid Prime's music. I'll be honest, that's one of my favorite papers I've ever written. I had a blast doing it. I also gave a presentation regarding it in class, though I do not have that on film, unfortunately. But if you'd like to read the paper, go ahead. Like I said, it was academically approved, and what I especially love about it is that it's a topic that I haven't seen anybody talk about before, which because like when I was writing this paper for my class, I wanted to do it on a topic that nobody's done yet, because like everybody's dissected Super Metroid to death and talked about all of the theory and design that goes into that game, and there's been but no one's really talked about Metroid Prime's music to this level and what makes it so special. And so to actually do an academic research paper to fund and not just to BS my points, but to actually legitimately show evidence to what this music, to what goes into this music, it felt really nice, and the overall end product turned out really good. So there's that. And then last but not least, I have a couple of new Metroid mashups coming up in hype mode for E3. One of them has technically already been on my SoundCloud for about a month now, but I just forgot about it. I forgot to upload it on YouTube, but there is a brand new one that I just finished that will be going up along with that. So yeah, all of those plugs that we mentioned, you can find those in the description. And that is a wrap. We will see you next mission after E3, folks. Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye, guys.